Coming to you live from Chatterbox Studios in downtown Memphis, it's Stephen Kirkpatrick with Executive Speakers on Speakers. I've got former Disney Institute professor, professional comedian, customer service extraordinaire, Louie Gravance with me. We're going to talk about customer experience, why every business is show business, and of course, we're going to tell some Disney stories. It's Mickey, it's Minnie, it's Louie. Let's break some of our New Year's resolutions, come up to the table, because we may learn something. We are so fortunate to have Louie Gravance with us today. Louie is a former Disney Institute professor, professional comedian, and customer experience consultant focused on creating the happiest workplace on earth. Louie, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great, Stephen. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to talk to you anyway, so this ought to be a double pleasure.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and we're really, really excited. Okay, let's start off with this. Louie, I know you watch a lot of movies over the course of the year, so I have to ask your opinion on one. Do you think La La Land is worth all the Oscar nominations that it got?
Oh, I think this is sort of a trap you're laying, but
it's not a trap. It's just it's an honest opinion.
No, I'm going to say yes, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
It is. So you know that I write movie reviews for a pop culture website, and yes, I am nuts for the movie, and I know that there are certain things that are not perfect about it, and I know that it's not everybody's cup of tea. But in the same way that The Artist a few years back, the silent movie, was very special and unique, and I was just so happy that someone bothered to do it. That's how I feel about La La Land, and it's the first time in many years that someone has done a musical in Hollywood that is not a play on itself or self-referential or camp, that it's just absolutely sincere and without irony. And I love it.
So let me ask you this. Do you think that it's the truth of the movie that allows it to resonate with today's audience? Because I think a lot of people will look at musicals and say, musical movies, that was really big in the 30s and 40s, but it doesn't really resonate. But obviously this one has had long legs and resonated with a lot of audiences. Do you think it's because of its sincerity?
What I think, that's part of it. And the other thing is, in the same way that Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers movies, you look at it, neither one of them were good singers. Neither one of them were particularly good actors. They were great dancers, but you wanted to see them in movies. There was something about watching them that was pleasant and fun. And I think what grounds the film is Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling, and the fact that it absolutely looks like they dig each other. You buy that 100%. And I think it's one of the things that makes the movie sort of honest and sincere. Don't you?
I think so. You and I have had conversations before. Emma Stone I think she's phenomenal in almost anything she's in. She just comes across as such a unique person, but has there's a goodness about her that really resonates. I think she does a very good job. And Ryan Gosling does a great job as well. I think they were both very well cast, and it serves as something for all of us who are in entertainment fields or information sharing fields like speaking. That if you come from a place of truth, it's going to resonate with people.
I agree, and it didn't hurt that I grew up in Los Angeles in show business. I was a young person. I remember falling in love at that age in Hollywood, and that's what Hollywood looks like to you when you're very young. You're very emotional, and you're falling in love with the city, and the whole thing's great.
So,
however,
go ahead.
Not my choice for best film.
Oh,
not my choice for best film.
Do you want to reveal it on the Executive Speakers on Speakers podcast, or do you need to wait?
Yes, I do. I think I would have to give that award to Moonlight.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, look, I got to ask, why Moonlight, Louie?
It replicates 3 stages of growing up in an interestingly dreamy fashion, in a way that I haven't seen a movie work in a long time. And another reason is, if I tell you what the movie's about, you will not want to see it. There is no way to explain the narrative without it sounding either trite or, oh my God, I don't want to see that. And yet, you love it. You love the experience. And that in and of itself, something that you wouldn't feel that you had a relationship to or that you were a connection to, and yet you walk away from it feeling changed. I think it's a great film.
So let's kind of piggyback on this, talking about movies and show business and your early start in Los Angeles. Now, the thing that you talk about, one of your main speech topics is there's no business like show business, and all of our business is show business. Talk to me.
No business but show business. There's no business but show business. Yes, and
so talk to me about where that concept came from and how it's kind of grown with you over the years.
I will tell you the moment it first dawned on me. I was in my mid-teens, and I was filming a commercial for Knott's Berry Farm. They were opening a couple of new thrill rides, and I was to sit in this roller coaster with a camera based on the front for hours, screaming at a time while they shot this commercial from various angles. And during one of the breaks, I will never forget this passionate discussion going on between the director and the ad executive. And it was imperative to the ad executive that one seat in the roller coaster remain empty. And even though it was going to be not visible to the naked eye for most people, they felt that it sent a message subliminally that this ride and this place were extremely popular, but there was still a place for you. And I remember thinking, whoa, just the head tripping and the way to wrap cerebrally your mind around that. And then as I went on and did everything from soft drink commercials to McDonald's commercials to clothes commercials, cars commercials, I saw this thread and I saw how these things were thought out. So then when I ended up at Walt Disney World, first as an entertainer and then a trainer and then part of the launch of the business programs at Disney Institute, this language was something I already innately knew. I had no problem with show business and commerce, the connection, both in profitability and emotional, that every transaction was an emotional transaction that involved every sense, what it looks like, sounds like, smells like, and feels like. So I think I had a leg up there because of my eccentric and unique growing up on television sets and movie sets and mostly commercial sets.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting. Commercials are such an interesting art form because you're definitely selling a product, but it is an art form and you need to sell that emotional interaction. Why don't we talk a little about the Disney Institute, Louie? A lot of our listeners probably have heard of the Institute before in Disney University, but they're not really quite sure what it does. And the more I've read into it, the more fascinating idea it is. I mean, the concept that Disney came up with. So, I mean, please share with us kind of the background on Disney Institute, please.
Well, initially, Michael Eisner's dream, he was the CEO at the time, was for it to be like Chautauqua, which is a learning center and for people to vacation and learn. And in the beginning, none of the classes were really Disney oriented. There was a couple of drawing classes, but none of them were about the business of Disney. They were about Mandarin cooking. They were about city planning. They were about flower design, really eclectic storytelling, poetry, really eclectic subjects. And it didn't grab an audience. And those of us that were working at the Disney University that were doing business programs already teaching the qualities and the values of Disney training, we were really anxious to send these programs to the Disney Institute where we thought it could really launch and we could open up to a whole new audience. And in fact, I believe it was the third year that the Institute was open, that is in fact what happened. And then eventually it became exclusively about business programs and customer service.
Mm. So everyone's got a Disney story about going to Disney World. And how great the customer service is, how they think of things. Why is customer service so embedded in the cast members at Disney in their DNA?
Because of the emotional connection that is drawn, and from the very first day, from the very first moment. that they call it traditions. And from the first moment, there is an attempt to draw an emotional connection from your first Disney experience to the kinds of experiences that you will be providing from this day forward. And whether that's your connection to the movies, your own connections to the park as a child, if you were old enough, your connection to Walt Disney and your memories of that, any way we could make that connection with the cast, that would, and this is true now in any business that I work with, any way that we could draw that emotional connection and do what, and this is my phrase that I've coined, get everyone to come on board with the concept that great service serves the server first. And that every magical moment, and yes, we use those terms, every magical moment that you help facilitate is one you participate in and one that you also retain value from. And that is the crux of keeping people emotionally engaged. And so the first part of the training has nothing to do with your task, whether you're going to be making pizzas or whether you're going to, a good example, if you're going to be one of those trainers, you spend weeks being cross-utilized in training so that you'll know what you're talking about. And, you clean hotel rooms and you portray character, all kinds of things. And one day it was my task, to create hundreds of pizzas with this lady that had worked backstage for 19 years doing nothing but making pizzas.
Wow.
And she had a system and she taught me this system. And by this point,
she must have been really good at making pizzas after 19 years.
Well, I'll tell you. So, at this point, I've been through a lot of the cross training. I had been cleaning toilets in hotel rooms. I had been, I've been working security. So this pizza thing seemed like a walk in the park.
Seemed mild.
So this was the consciousness that I stupidly brought to it. So she shows me the task, and I think I get it. And so the pizzas come, and you would take a paintbrush, and you put the tomato sauce on, and you toss the cheese around. And if it was pepperoni, it would go to the right. If it was cheese, it would go to the left on the sort of conveyor belt. Not terribly unlike that Lucy and Ethel scene,
I was just thinking that. It was like the candy thing with Lucy and Ethel, except it was Disney World and pizzas.
Much slower, but it was the same concept, basically. So these pizzas were coming, and I thought, well, this isn't too hard. And I remember tossing the cheese around and sort of humming to myself and enjoying this task. And this sweet woman is watching me. And I guess after a while, she just can't take it. And she goes, honey, honey, no. She goes, baby, you got to get that cheese all the way around that pizza even, because if you don't, it ain't going to be a good show for my guests.
Wow.
This lady never interfaced with a guest in 19 years. And yet she was still able to be backstage and know that she wasn't just thrashing out pizzas. She was an integral part in the person's day that they were going to have there at Walt Disney World. And that was that wiped the smirk off my face. I can tell you right there.
That is amazing. I would just sit here and think so many CEOs across the country would love for their employees to have that kind of ownership over their product. That just goes to show. But that just goes to show you the magic of Disney and the connection that they make. And God bless this woman for having that sense of excellence over her job that that most of us would just think is just kind of meaningless work. But that is wow, blows me away.
She thought job first, and task second. Now, I've worked with a great many claims adjusters. So imagine, so you're making pizzas, and not to make light of that, but some of the folks I deal with have this constant attack of different kinds of tasks that are competing for that emotion. They're competing for that drive. They're competing for that commitment. And so that becomes then you have to really be able to speak to somebody literally, convincingly, rationally and believably about how do you remember what it is you're doing? Not just what you're doing, but what you're doing. And that's also a real part of the thrust of my talks and my work, is to keep people on point, because so much of what we do is about remembering. So much of great training is about remembering, because when I go into, say, a casino or a hospital to work with the folks, or a retail outlet, or an insurance company, and I sit with the team members or the cast members or the employees that are making everything work, almost invariably, almost to a person, that employee can explain to me what a perfect service moment would look like in their industry. I mean, from all angles. So, but yet many of them are not performing in that way. Many of them are not creating those moments on a consistent basis. So if they know what that moment looks like, and they're not providing that moment, there are two things that either happen. There's either a training barrier, or some sort of some internal idea. It can be technical, it can be machinery, or most likely, and this is hard for employers to hear, for some reason they don't want to bad enough.
It's interesting. Whenever we were talking about the Disney Institute and the connection made from the first day, just how that comes down, my thoughts immediately went to leadership has to be bought into this concept, and I think that it comes through with what you just said.
That's interesting that you mentioned it, because the hierarchy is flattened the first day, and so in other words, when you're looking in that room, and you might have 100 people in that first training room, you could have a vice president sitting right next to somebody that was going to be working custodial. And everybody had the same name tag. Everybody sat at the same table. And occasionally someone would come in that didn't necessarily think that it was aimed at them really, and they'd bring in their assistant. And they were shocked, some of them, when it was conveyed to them that no, we weren't messing around. You got to leave the assistant outside and your phones, and you're just like everybody today. You're just like Snow White today. So hunker down. You're in for the ride.
Louie, so one of the things that separates you from other former Disney Institute professors, Disney U teachers, is that you have actually taken the Disney Institute training and totally recreated it in another industry that has nothing to do with theme parks. And you've been able to replicate it successfully. Please talk to us about your Bank of America experience and how you did that.
Well, it was so much luck and fortune and baptism by fire, as they say. I had 2 weeks left. I was going to go out on my own. I decided that I was going to go solo, and I had 2 weeks left with the Walt Disney Company, and our client for a week was Bank of America, and it would be what my function was, by and large, was to try and recreate what that training might look like to a first day cast member, to really demonstrate what our program looked like for people that were being onboarded. So at the end of the week, they asked me if I would like to come and work for them, and work on a project that they basically wanted to create, something different. They didn't want to steal from Disney, but they wanted to create something that would live in their culture, that could start people and inspire people in the same way. So it was one of those, be careful what you wish for, because I was hoping it would get a big client, but in no time I found myself in North Carolina, locked in a room with a technical writer, and it was time to make this happen. And the culture of Bank of America at the time, they were closing a bank account for everyone they were opening every day. And we were lucky that it was a culture that was open to, ready for, and knew that they needed a culture shift. So what we did was I went to the foundation in the same way that we did at Traditions. I knew that our power was to really emotionally connect people with Walt Disney and his dream and the way that began. And what I found is many of the people that worked for Bank of America had no emotional connection to the amazing things that that company and organization had done for almost a century. None. They had no idea of their involvement in the Golden Gate Bridge. They had no idea that thanks to them, Disneyland was completed. They had no idea that their bank was literally founded by a gentleman who would give you a loan based on the calluses of your hands, or whether or not you could be trusted to work.
I didn't know that. Bob, did you know that? Bob didn't know that. That's amazing.
It was first known as the Bank of Italy and operated, I believe, in California. And it was small, and that was one of the criteria to find out if you were really a hard-working person, if you could be trusted. And that was something they bragged about a long time. We want to see the calluses of your hand. So this was a way of thinking that was very foreign to people that were in banking at the time. And I'll tell you what we did. We did this for practically every banking associate in the United States of America that worked for them at the time. And they wanted to do it in huge ballrooms in these cities. And I said, no, let's do it in theaters. Let's rent theaters. And let's work this the same way we'd work an attraction. We would have the right music playing in the lobbies that would set them up that this was going to be a very different experience. We would load them in all at the same time, the same way a theater at one of those parks is loaded in. Suddenly the lights would go down. There was music. And suddenly, with special effects and everything, you would see various bank associates start to be lit slowly and tell their personal stories about their connection with working for that bank. And at this point, everybody's head would be spun around that this was not the bank meeting that they were anticipating at all. And we dared to go emotional, and we called it the Bank of America Spirit. We wanted to call it the Spirit to Serve, but Marriott had already trademarked
the
that.
trademark battles.
So, right. So we went with the Bank of America Spirit. Now, I wonder if you can imagine what the word spirit on a piece of training data, text, material. You can just imagine at first the wide eyes about that had to be sold. That we were going to be bold enough to talk about the spirit of delivering customer excellence, service excellence in the banking industry, and we weren't going to be ashamed about it. And I must tell you that about 3 months into this, it took me a couple of years, about 3 months into this process, a gentleman, a high-ranking official with the bank in North Carolina, comes up to me, thanks me for my efforts, and says that he's leaving the bank in a couple of weeks. And I go, why? Well, why is that? Why are you leaving? You seem that you're a vital part of this team. And he looks at me and he goes, Louie, you see, I don't want to be nice.
I don't want to be nice.
I don't want to be nice. He goes,
that had to be an answer you were not expecting, Louie. That probably just caught you out of left field. It's like, what?
I don't want to be nice. He goes, I know how to do this. I know how to do this the way I've known how to do it for many years. I'm successful at it. Maybe consider me an old dog, but I just don't have the niceness in me. And so
I feel bad for his wife.
Right. Yeah. So he chose to hop on another narrative, and well done for everyone. Well done for everyone. Well done for setting the expectation.
Yeah.
Well done for maintaining the expectation, and well done for saying, maybe not for me. You know that when you go to the casting center at Walt Disney World too, and you can go on it's open 7 days a week. Even if they could take you immediately, you sit in a lobby and there's this video playing on a loop with various people. And it starts, hi, and welcome to the most magical place on earth, where you'll be creating memories that will last a lifetime. It is so over the top with pixie dust. It is this bazooka of pixie dust that comes off the screen. One of the main reasons for this is at least 10% of the people look at that video and go, oh, heck no. Oh, no. I'm out of here. And they turn around and they leave. So if you think about it, the training and the expectation is set from the first moment you touch the doorknob that looks like the doorknob that talks in Alice in Wonderland. You are, are you getting on board or not?
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's so great too, because I really think it makes companies take a hard look at what kind of expectations they want to set in the beginning for their trainees. And whenever you have a well thought out training program, it's going to save you a lot of heartache on the end by not having someone that's with your bank or your corporation or your company for 2 or 3 years that's not bought into that corporate culture that you want to.
Stephen, it's easier to think your way into a new way of acting than it is to act your way into a new way of thinking. And this is why I never attack behaviors first. I never attack behaviors first. Language is something monumental to deal with before you ever get to behaviors, because language inspires behavior.
That is interesting. Louie, I've got time for one more quick question. One of the things that you do that really sticks out is you use storytelling to make your points. Today we live in a world where there's so many facts and figures and spreadsheets and PowerPoints, and so many speakers go with hard facts, hard data, and trends, but you use storytelling. Why is storytelling such a powerful medium for making points and illustrating things that you want the audience to see?
Again, I think it helps when you're listening to an anecdote, and if you are telling a story well, you're telling a story that's not only coming from your point of view, but it's one that's inviting other people to bring their experience to the story as well, so that they feel that they know what you're talking about. And as you know, I don't work with a lot of PowerPoint. Mm-hmm. And for example, it was really important that safety was the first thing that I would teach people in my training in any of the theme parks. Now, I could have run a tape and shown a spreadsheet and run a PowerPoint that would show statistically the dangers and the hazards of our safety challenges. But I would tell them this story about something that had actually happened, where a lady fell down in the middle of the street and everyone involved did everything wrong. Every one of us involved made a bad choice. Uh-huh. And I would tell that story. And through that story, I was able to connect how at every single point we could have made a better choice and didn't. And for years, people would run into me and come up to me and go, oh my gosh, something happened to me the other day. And you know what I remembered? The old lady falling down story.
Oh gosh.
Now,
old lady falling down.
Would they have remembered a slide? Would they have remembered those talking points if I'd handed them some behavioral guidelines? I mean, not that we don't cover that as well, but what they remembered was the way they were able to connect emotionally to a situation that they had either been in or could be in. Mm.
Very, very good.
And the other reason is it's just a lot more entertaining.
Yeah.
And our job as speakers is to edutain. At least that's what I have to offer. And the way of doing that is to convey the stories, the people, the characters that we meet, the way that the experiences that we have and that we give, what they look like, sound like, smell like, and feel like. And that's best done in storytelling. And that's one of the things I do, is work with executives who are about to give presentations and to get them off the PowerPoint and to convey their point in something real that happened to them that other people can understand.
Very good. Good answer. All right, everyone. It is time for your favorite part of the show. It's time for 3 random questions.
Oh, no.
We got theme music this time. All right, Louie, this is how it works. I've got 3 random questions for you. If you answer all 3 right, you get to go to the bonus question. Since
I don't know why I'm horrified.
Oh, you should be.
Let's go.
This is going to be fun.
All right.
Of course, our 3 random questions are about Disney World in Orlando. So, let's test your Disney knowledge. Question number 1.
First of all, it's Walt Disney World. So there you go.
Oh, excuse me. Walt Disney World.
There you go.
All right. I guess that's a mark against me starting out. Okay.
No, it's all right.
First question. What does Epcot stand for?
Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow, or it can also stand for Every Person Comes Out Tired.
All right, that's good. We got that.
Yeah.
I got a bonus question too. I should have made that harder. Okay, and all right, this is the multiple choice. How many people visit Walt Disney World annually? Mm-hmm. Is it A, over 37 million? B, over 52 million, or C, over 65 million?
No, I'm going to say over 37 million.
Oh, Louie, I'm sorry. It is over 52 million annually.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's more than I thought.
Yeah. It's a lot of people.
Wow.
All right.
I'm going to keep the stock.
Yeah, you need to. Yeah. It should. It's good stock. All right, question number 3. There are 27 resort-themed hotels on the property. 27. I did not realize that, Bob. That's a lot of themed hotels.
That's a lot, yeah.
Which were the first 2 hotels built?
They were the Contemporary Resort, which, by the way, was famous because it worked as shelves. Those rooms were put in there like drawers, and the idea was that they could pull them out again, except that the place settled and they were stuck there. And the other one was the Polynesian Resort.
We're correct. And so 1971, the first phase was 5 hotels, and those were the first 2 built of the first 5. Louie, since you gave us additional information on the Contemporary Hotel, I'm going to give you the bonus question. Are you ready for it?
Oh, okay, good. Yes.
Who is my daughter's favorite Disney princess?
Oh, wow. Wow. I am going to say, this is completely out of nowhere, but I'm going to say Ariel, the Little Mermaid.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Jasmine. Her favorite princess is Jasmine. Yes. Quick Disney story that I'm going to tell. We had 15 minutes to get from our hotel to Contemporary to Epcot and then see Jasmine and Aladdin before they went away. My daughter and I ran probably about a mile in the rain so she could see Princess Jasmine. That's the magic of Disney, people. Mm-hmm. Magic of Disney. That
is, yes. And I'm glad you had that experience, and I'm glad that your daughter has a good taste. She picked Jasmine from one of my favorite movies. So.
Oh, very good. Listen, Louie.
You're doing a great job, Stephen.
Hey, trying to.
Not only here, but in your home, it seems. So good for you.
Louie, thank you so much for all the time and being a good sport. We really do appreciate it. For more information on Louie, go to www.executivespeakers.com/Louie Gravance. We've got bio, picture, speech topics, and many videos that you can see Louie making his wonderful points and showing how he's entertaining to a crowd. He's a hilarious man, and we're so happy to have him on board. Louie, thank you so much for being with us.
It's been my pleasure, Stephen. Thank you so much.
We want to thank you again for joining us on our podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Kirkpatrick. Special thanks to our guest, Louie Gravance. For more information on him, you can go to our website, www.executivespeakers.com/Louie Gravance. Louie is spelled Louie, Gravance, Gravance. Special thanks also to Chatterbox Audio Theater, producer Bob Arnold, and our music selections from Ryan Sheeler and Poddington Bear. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.